For pre-need funerals, burials, or cremation since 1975. Curtis and Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg. Funeral service for Mary Tall will be Saturday at noon from Community Funeral Home Chapel in Sylacauga, with burial in the Tallahatchie Baptist Church Cemetery of Childersburg. Visitation is Friday at the funeral home from 1 until 7. Community Funeral Home directing. Funeral service for Mr. Charles Edward Dunham, age 75, of Goodwater, will be Friday at 11 from the Chapel of Radley Funeral Home. Brother Adam Andrews and Brother Trent Bailey officiating. Burial in the Smyrna Cemetery. The family will receive friends this evening, 5 till 8 o'clock at the funeral home. Mr. Dunham died Tuesday at Russell Medical Center. He was an active member of the Southview Church of Christ. Radley Funeral Home, Alexander City, directing. And funeral service for Mrs. Dorothy Bentley will be today at 1 o'clock from Perfect Peace Baptist Church in Alexander City. Armour's Memorial Funeral Home directing, and that service will be at Perfect Peace Baptist Church down in Tallapoosa County. Funeral service for Mr. Alfred Higgins Sr. is 11 o'clock Saturday at Wright's Funeral Home Chapel, with interment in the Peace and Goodwill Church Cemetery. Wright's Funeral Home directing. Funeral service for Betty Beiser is today at Curtis and Son Funeral Home in Sylacauga at 2 o'clock, with burial in the Evergreen Cemetery. Visitation from 1 until 2 at the funeral home. Online condolences at curtisandsonfh.com. Curtis and Son Funeral Home, North Chapel, directing. Homegoing celebration, remembering the life of Mr. Ed Davis Sr., age 76, is Friday at 1 o'clock from S.M. Goodson Funeral Home Chapel in Talladega, with the Reverend Matthew Leonard officiating. Interment in the Davis Cemetery. Public viewing for Mr. Davis today from 2 until 7 at the funeral home, and S.M. Goodson Funeral Home and Crematory, Talladega, directing. Memorial service for Shannon Nicole Nyman, age 35, of Sylacauga, Saturday at 2 o'clock from Radley Smith Funeral Home Chapel. Ms. Nyman died July the 11th, UAB in Birmingham. Radley Smith Funeral Home directing. And funeral service for Mrs. Laura Bell Dykes Oliver, age 81, of Alexander City, is today at 11 from the Chapel of Radley Funeral Home. Pastor Jerry Abbott and Dr. Steve King officiating. Burial in the Alexander City Cemetery. Mrs. Oliver died July the 11th at Grandview Medical Center in Birmingham. She was a member of the First Baptist Church of Alexander City and an icon in the Alexander City area, and she worked with the city of Alexander City, where she served as administrative assistant for a number of years, and she was a historian too. Memorial messages may be sent to the family at radleyfuneralhome.com. Radley Funeral Home in Alexander City in charge of the arrangements. This obituary report this morning brought to you by Curtis and Son Funeral Home, the North Chapel on Highway 21 in Sylacauga, and the Childersburg Chapel on Highway 280 in Childersburg. For pre-need funerals, burials, or cremation since 1975, Curtis and Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg.